What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Buds, Bros, and Superheroes. If it's your first time coming to hang out, let me quick give you a rundown of how the show is laid out so everybody knows what's in store for today. The name of the podcast is actually the three sections of the podcast, and today their content will be filled as following. In the Bud section, I got some news some Pennsylvania people might be happy about. Also going to ask my co-host a very special question. In the Bros, my co-host is a podcast fucking champion. So we're going to talk about podcasting, starting them, running them, all the fun stuff that comes with that. And then finally, in Superheroes, we're going to talk about the new Mortal Kombat movie. I'll put it right up front. Spoilers. My name is Nick James, and today I am joined by someone who's become a really good friend. I mean, it's really fucking awesome, to be honest. Third time coming back to co-host my show with me. I've been on his show being a co-host. We're really just forming this awesome podcast internet friendship. It's great. Please, everybody, say hello to Daniel from the Reasons I'm Broke podcast. And Daniel, please say hello to everybody.
Hey, everyone. Thank you, Nick, for having me back on, and I am excited to jump into Mortal Kombat today, as you mentioned, and it's always fun to have you on the show, and to be on yours is a privilege. So thank you for having me back on. It's awesome to be able to share this on the other side as well, and the best part, not needing to edit any of this.
Very true. Yeah, that's always the best part is the editing time on our episodes are very, very short, and mostly it's me just going, oh God, I'm sorry. Last week we had JD on, and he kind of came up with, I don't know if he came up with it, but he used it. He had the word three-peat. So this is your three-peat time on here, because this is your third time already on Buds, Bros, and Superheroes. Can you believe it?
No, I can't. It feels like my second time maybe, or first. I don't know. Like it still doesn't feel like we've been doing this a few times, but three-peat, you're building up the guest list. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for being here so much. We're going to get this show started the way we always do, by entering into the Bud section. So, Mr. Daniel, you yourself are not a traveler of the green, but I did have an important question that we're going to get to at the end of this, revolving around the movie. It's kind of what I like to do here a lot. Before we get to that, though, I had a little bit of news, if you didn't mind.
Yeah, let's go in.
For all my listeners who are in my home state,
Pennsylvania marijuana polls show the highest ever support for legalization.
If you want to read the full one, go to marijuanamoment.net. But basically what this says is a new poll of results out in Pennsylvania show that nearly 6 in 10, 58% adult residents support the complete legalization of marijuana in the Commonwealth, which is the highest support of legalization since the Muhlenberg College annual public health poll began tracking the issue. So yay, Pennsylvania. Everybody seems to just want to be able to get their smoke on, be able to just be like, it's weed, let's just stop it already, and fully legalize the complete use of marijuana.
As someone that has resided in Pennsylvania, does it feel like that state was one of the last ones that would have accepted this kind of poll?
It's pretty funny you say that, because I'm a Jersey transplant to Pennsylvania, and like the second I leave, they're like, hey, we'll legalize marijuana here. And it's like, come on, guys. Why'd you do me like that?
Here in Florida, it feels like they would be down with everything, but it's also a weird state because it's got a bunch of Northerners, and it's got people that were born here they don't consider themselves Southerners, but they do, and it's this weird amalgam of different opinions and different. I mean, you'll see the divide sometimes when it comes to these voting, when people show up for voting every 4 years, and it's one of those things where I was just curious to see how that felt in your end. That it feels like it's widely accepted, because I feel like nationwide, that's kind of been the consensus with a lot of states where they have already legalized it. Has it not been a majority of the country yet?
No, not full majority if we're talking all 50. A good amount. I mean, if we're talking full recreational just use, that's where really a lot of states have gone medical, but it's the recreational and that behind it that some states are really pumping the brakes on. I did a quick search of your home state, and right now adult use, recreational or medical, is illegal in Florida. Possession of 20 grams of marijuana or less is considered a misdemeanor, and you can go to jail up to a year or face a $1,000 fine.
I didn't know that the medical portion was not legalized in Florida, because I always see all of these CBD shops all the time, and this shows how little I know about this thing. But, they've got the leaf all over the stores, and is that just a way to get around being able to smoke marijuana? Is CBD oil something that's just like a substitute for actually smoking?
I was actually wrong. It is medically available in Florida. I
Okay.
just had to refine my search. That was my bad on my part. But to explain your question or to explain your answer, marijuana has two components, THC and CBD. THC is the psychoactive one that leads to the quote unquote reefer madness that you might see, where CBD has more of a calming effect, less of a mental high, and that's what, you can give your dog CBD. They sell CBD dog treats at like Petco and shit like that.
Okay, gotcha. So it's not all right, because that's kind of what I was wondering about too, because those shops remind me of what used to be what are the electronic cigarettes, the vaping shops. So it seems like all the vape shops were replaced with these things, and that's what I'm seeing all over Florida over the last year or two.
It's kind of to go with what you were saying, but also take a little detour. Has the vape shop come and gone in huge numbers like it has here as well?
Basically, yeah, we still have a hookah lounges, and those are still a thing, but for the most part it's CBD that has taken over.
That's funny. I remember every other place, like Cloud City, Vape Dragon, Vapes Are Us, and then all of a sudden they're just gone.
And people are still getting them though. I know several people that have, and I don't know if those are vape devices either, but they're like these rectangle longer sticks, and they're like high tech compared to what vape things were, where they'll beep and they have lights on them and shit, and I'm like, all right, so are those the new vaping things, or is that a whole different thing? But then they'll tell me that they have nicotine in them, so I don't know. I think it's just maybe the technology has advanced, but you might know better on that end.
Both in the weed world and in the nicotine world, you could just go in and buy a pre-made pod that they just hand to you, and you just start puffing it right away. There's no charging, there's no nothing. You're just hit with either the nicotine or the THC, depending on which way you go, and boom, it's just there. There's no tank, there's no unscrewing, there's no nothing. You just open that fucking box and you're ready to rock and roll.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, going back to this article of being the highest ever support for the legalization, to me, I've done it. I've smoked before. It's not something that I do today, but it's kind of makes sense as someone who, I am an alcoholic and someone that it's legal to drink wherever, you at all states you can drink, and at least in the US. So to legalize marijuana, which seems to be, I think, a less harmful drug or substance than alcohol, I think that does make sense from just the safety standpoint of, well, if we're gonna, there's all the stuff with crime and you'd cut down on the number of people going to, being stuffed in jails. But, if you're going to allow alcohol, then why not anything that's less dangerous than that?
Agreed. Yeah, many states. I know that Colorado has either been one that's going further with other psychedelics of just making them legal to kind of stop the crime rate a little bit, to stop the underground market and stuff like that. It's kind of saying the same thing, if it's a personal responsibility to enjoy all of these things responsibly, and kind of back to the health and marijuana versus alcohol, of there are side effects to smoking weed in terms of health wise, especially if you're smoking weed, actually taking a fire to it, burning it and exhaling smoke, compared to the vaping, in which we talked about, or edibles or tinctures, rub-ins, anything like that. But alcohol destroys your liver and stuff. It's really bad, and over the time it could show really bad health effects, whereas weed not so one, but definitely a little bit less. And to be honest, stoned people are much more agreeable than drunk people.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I work in retail, many years of retail, and from experience, that is 100% true. I've never had to ban anyone from being too high in the store. I've had to ban someone for being too drunk in the store. I
kind of want to hear that story though. How drunk were they?
They were trying to fight another customer, another parent in the store, and and it's tough to reason that shit, because when you're trying to tell them, hey, you got to calm down, you got to leave, I'm going to call the police, to them, he started getting belligerent, and then started getting sad, and then he started getting angry, and then finally the dude got upset, the parent, and he was just like, hey, get the fuck, he raised his voice in the store. He's like, get the fuck out of here. I'm calling the police right. And that's when the drunk guy's like, fuck you. And he ran out. And the next day he he apologized, he made amends, but I was like, okay, well, just so you know, because of that behavior, you cannot be in here anymore. And, it's unfortunate. It was someone that was a semi-regular, someone that we were all familiar with because of these past behaviors. But this reached a point where we were like, okay, this is not cool. You can't be fighting other clientele, and you can't be scaring customers in the store by trying to fight another customer. So it is what it is, and I told them, just get the help you need. And I don't know. I hope they did. It just sucks having to do that, but that's sometimes you got to deal with that and way more in the world of retail. I've accepted that.
That's insane. I'm almost at a loss for words. Many a times I've been to a comic book store, many different comic book stores over many different states, and can't say I've ever seen someone want to fight someone else or even just get loud. I think that our group of people who would find themselves in comic book shops regularly aren't really loud, aggressive people to begin with.
For the most part, the subscribers are very timid, I don't want to cause trouble, to the point where they will hover around the counter instead of getting in line because they feel that getting in line is them intruding on us who might be working on a project or, whatever it may be. But that's another thing that because of that type of personality, when they're hovering around the counter, I'm going to be like, are you all set? Yeah, I'm all set. And then they'll come up. So you're right. It is not common to see that. But when I do, and it has nothing to do with alcohol or if they're not on any substance, but it's usually when and this is how long I've worked at a comic shop at this point. I've kind of analyzed these things on slow days where they're really insecure about themselves. And that's when they will get loud about things like, oh man, I love this and I love Batman and I love, and that's where it gets a little like, all right, relax, just be yourself. What's up? What's going on? And when they try to kind of overcompensate with their knowledge of these characters because they're trying to impress the guy behind the counter, and it's like, we don't care. We just want to, what are you looking for? Cool. If you want to talk movies and stuff, great. But, don't go out of your way to try to impress us or impress your friend while you're in the store with them. I see that a lot where they'll try to teach their friend, hey, this character showed up here, and then they're saying things that are completely wrong. But that's one thing that I'm just like, whatever. That's the other end of that spectrum.
You just hit my nail twice on the head there. Shout out to Comics of the Green, downtown Scranton. Go there, spend your money, people. I did that just days ago.
Which part?
That fucking guy where I had my book and I got this sweet, are they still called? I think it's a short box, not a long box. It's awesome. It's the Justice League of America, and they all have the Star Rose on their fucking face. I think it's Justice League 190 is the actual cover. Oh man, it is so sweet. But I had the book. I bought the three Jokers. I didn't have the third book, so I had the three Jokers, and I had my box in my hand, and they were doing stuff. And I was just standing there like, I wish I could spend some money, I guess, because I don't. Like you just said, it's so funny. You plucked the words out of my head. It was like they're busy. They're very busy with their comic book store stuff. I dare not bother them. And then at the end, they have their wall books behind them. And they have a really great selection. The one that I like, they have, it's so cool. They actually have the Secret Wars that nice. You and Kelly tried to sell to the comic book men.
Yeah, I think it's number 8.
You guys,
Spidey.
Yes, I go through that show all the time. And every time you're on, I'm just like, I fucking know these people. I also know somebody else on that show. If you remember the first season, it was a lady trying to sell her Barbies.
Vaguely remember, yeah.
There were Barbies, but it was like Wonder Woman Barbie and Batgirl Barbie. Yes. So I know that I work with her. What a small fucking world. Great show, but I always have that on the background, and you guys were just on selling that Secret Wars, so they had that up in my comic book store, if you will. And as I was leaving, I was doing that, not to impress the person behind, like, I don't think so, but I was like, that one's awesome. That's the first time that like the Venom suit's kind of brought in, and all of a sudden Spidey's black. And I'm sorry. I'm gonna apologize to you on behalf of all of us.
Now, I think it's just one of those things again where you don't want to intrude, you don't want to. It's the way Kelly tells me all the time, like if she works at a coffee shop, and when the drink doesn't come out right, I'm just like, oh, well, I'll just, and you just talked about it, I think 2 episodes ago, where I'm like, oh, well, I'll just finish it. I asked for this. Or if I try something new and I don't like it, I will just drink it all because I paid for it and that's what I asked for. And her thing is like, no, in food service, we don't care. Like, you're not intruding. Tell us that you don't like it and we'll remake it or we'll give you something else. And I'm like, no, I'm an asshole because I ordered something that I don't like. So I get it because I do the same thing at other places.
Yeah, I think I was talking about like, oh, I don't want to take the tomato off my Whopper because they're going to think I'm a fucking asshole.
That's the one.
But now with the almighty Palpa Kelly's blessing. I'm going to go up to every single place and be like, I don't like this. Make a new one. The Emperor tells you so.
You know what? Put the tomato back on. Make a third one.
Cut it in quarters. I want my tomato to be a square, no circles. To wrap on out of this Bud section, I was going to ask you the question. I've kind of really enjoyed getting to do this with the different movies that we watch. So if you're a past listener, you kind of know what's going to be coming here. But Daniel, if I were to say that you could smoke with anybody in the Mortal Kombat universe, and then you would get their power for the rest of that day, who would you want to smoke with?
So my answer is Raiden, because of the teleportation powers, being able to save a ton of time in just being able to go from point A to point B. And who knows if in 200 years we'll already have that kind of technology, or 1,000 years where driving is a thing of the past. But just being able to go anywhere using Raiden's powers, being able to charge things with my phone. We live in a world where we're probably going to have more and more technology in the future. So that seems like it'd be handy unless we move away from electricity. But that's my answer. But the other thing is, if I want to hang out with them, then it would be Shang Tsung, because I would want to see what a high Shang Tsung would transform into, what his transformations would look like. It reminds me a little bit of Clayface when he's weaker and he starts doing these awesome, cool, different shapes in the animated series when Batman was defeating him. And so Shang Tsung, I think, would be an interesting one to just watch high, or just talk to high, and seeing them change into different personalities throughout the whole thing.
What a great fucking answer. Oh, man, I really like that last one. Yeah, just be like, if you're sitting, just be like, all right, now turn into this person.
Yes.
My answer was going to be, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right, Goro. Is that right?
All right. Yeah.
That's the guy with the 2 extra arms, right?
That's right.
Fuck yeah, dude. I don't know if you remember Spider-Man, the animated series, when they went through the Neogenic Nightmare saga. And Peter Parker, I think he actually got 2 extra arms, so he had 6, right?
Yeah. He was a real freak.
Yeah, dude, I've been obsessed with having extra limbs since that. I don't know what it is, but I would love 2 extra arms.
Well, you think of all the extra work you could accomplish, the extra stuff you can do just throughout your day you think of of people that, have birth defect, or they lose a limb, and how difficult it is. But imagine doubling all of that power, really. And that's a good answer too. That's probably as useful as teleporting, probably more useful than teleporting from A to point B. That'll save you way more time.
But on the flip side of that, like Goro I'm not too familiar, so I'm going to apologize to everybody for later in the Mortal Kombat when I don't know what I'm talking about. But he kind of seemed like a dick, so I don't know if getting him high would be good or not. Like, we did talk about, high people usually don't attack you, but who knows if Goro is just like, this will be funny, and just smashes the fuck out of me right there. You know what I mean? I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so it's a high risk, high reward.
Good call. Same thing with like Sub-Zero. Yeah, I can freeze stuff, but dude might just want to kill me.
Yeah.
Get on. No, that was the other guy. Oh, that'd be great though if you could be Scorpion and your bong's on the other side of the room or something like that. Get over here.
We got to go there, Nick. With the extra limbs, think about sex. You'd be like Dr. Manhattan a little bit in the novel when he's multiplying himself. You'd be able to really please your partner if they're into that. That's another thing that we got to go there.
Oh yeah, no. If you're happy to go there, I am too, because I think it's so funny. There's a meme where it's like, men, how to please men in bed, and it's a light switch, and it's how to please women in bed, and it's a control board.
Yes, exactly. See, although the extra limbs might still not be enough.
No, but it'll put me fucking better up there, It's got to give me an edge of something.
That's right. Like maybe an extra little bit less. I don't know. It'll get you something somewhere.
I want you to pinch both nipples and smack my ass, and you're like, I could fucking do that now. Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, thanks. You're not doing it right, but you're trying. So
pay for effort there.
That's right. No, we know too well.
What a great way to end the Bud section. And with that, we could head on into the Bro section, where I've got one of the masters of podcasting with me. Are you interested in starting a podcast? We're going to give you some pro tips coming up right now. So, sir, I'm not going to bury the lead. I'm not even blowing smoke up your ass. I really do consider you a master of podcasting. What episode are you currently on in your podcast?
Well, that's very kind of you to say. While I've been doing this since 2012, it feels like I'm still learning, especially right now when I'm doing this rotating co-host thing, which is great because it's another opportunity to grow. So very much, I feel like a student at this still, and currently at 454 episodes.
That's a lot of podcasting, man. Yeah, I appreciate your humbleness, but in terms of needing, 10,000 hours or 100,000 hours of something to be a master, like, you're fucking far, dude. Good for you. That's amazing.
I was just thinking yesterday on the amount of, I wanted to calculate the amount of time a week I put into editing and recording a podcast and then multiplying it by 8 years, but I didn't want to feel like, holy shit, I've used up a year of my life podcasting, or, I didn't want to quite go there. But then I also thought, you know what? And you probably feel the same way. We're creating something. We're putting something out into the world that for the most part we feel is going to be on the internet or be around for probably longer than we are. So I think it feels almost like maybe not quite to the level of artwork, but it does feel a little bit like that. Like you're putting out something creative into the world that can be enjoyed beyond the time that we're here.
Oh, I definitely would consider it artwork, and I'm going to steal your line from you when we were talking about it in how you used to describe the making of your show. You didn't say you make it or you produce it. You said that you curate it. And that kind of spoke to me on so many different levels, because it's more than just the talking into the microphone, and something I'm trying to copy you with in terms of the way you market yourself and the way you're on so many different platforms. You're on with so many different posts and all that. Like, it is an entire world that you're creating and curating and sending out there. So fuck yeah, I would 100% say it's art.
Well, it doesn't feel so bad then now. Like I might actually calculate it and time my weekly hours that we put into this and really see how much is going into a part of my life is going into the show. But, as you and I have talked about this before, if we hadn't been enjoying any step of this, I don't think we'd go at this too long. It still has to remain a hobby. While yes, we treat it as work sometimes and some days, at the end of the day, it is a hobby that I think we both enjoy immensely, and that's why it continues, in spite of the time that it gets put in every week, in spite of, maybe one day or 1 week the numbers are a little bit lower than usual or whatever, but it's because we enjoy doing this that all of those things don't really matter.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If I was doing this, if I didn't want to do this, I for sure wouldn't be doing this. And if I was doing this for the quote unquote listeners, if there are people out there listening, not that I don't love you, there's not a lot of them right now. So I'm not doing this for anything other than the fact of what you're saying in the idea of I like to curate this. I like to get on here. I very much like that it's kind of moved to a co-hosting or a rotating thing. Now I'm talking to a bunch of people, learning a bunch about a whole group of people. You and I have become better friends than I never would have expected hitting subscribe on that first episode that I listened to. It's great. It's super amazing how far it's been able to get the reach.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned, some of the listenership and some of the numbers, and I forgot who originally put this out in the podcasting world, but to kind of translate the number of people that download an episode, people compare this to YouTube numbers or to, TV broadcast numbers. And it's like podcasting is a whole different world. It's not as large as YouTube or television. So someone said, think of it this way, where the number of people that you have downloading your episode, now translate that into them physically sitting at a conference, listening to you speak, and then showing up every week. That number that you get as an average, let's say it's 40 people. 40 people sitting down every week to listen to you talk. That's huge, and it's because we don't see it physically that it doesn't feel like a large number to us, but it is a huge deal.
Yeah, fucking A, when you put it that way, it is. That's awesome. Even for the one or two people, like, wow, you showed up again. That's amazing. I've just got a filthy fucking mouth and every now and then an opinion, and you're here to listen. That's amazing. Thank you. Good call, dude. See, you're a master. You're a guru. You're everything when it comes to podcasting.
I've just picked up a little something along. I've listened a little bit more than usual. I'm not good at listening, but sometimes something creeps in there I'm like, oh shit, that's true, and I remember it.
And if I'm not mistaken, we might have actually said it on a previous one. Was it? It was Kevin Smith that kind of threw out the call at the end of whatever podcast he was at, the point of saying, "Hey, you could do this too. Look at me. I'm just a fat, stupid idiot making a podcast. If I could do it, you could do it." And you took up that call, correct?
Yeah, that was about, again, 8 years ago. And I don't think he pushes it as, now he's more about just make a movie or he's more broad about do your thing. But back then he was pushing podcasting hard, and he was saying, record with the thing in your pocket that has a microphone. Boom, you have a podcast. Record, you and your friends talking. Boom, you have a podcast. And it's not to say that it doesn't take a lot of work to make it decent content, but that all comes with it. That comes with the ease of just being able to create it and put it out into the world is amazing. And that's something that he was very big on back then too, because he's like, when I was growing up, it was a lot harder to make a film or make a radio program and put it into the world for people to enjoy. But today we're able to create it, and then within minutes it's online for people to enjoy. You can stream live to hundreds of people, and they can see you and they can hear you. And so to him, it's amazing and it's huge. And he wants more people that are creative or that have this creative edge to put it out into the world and to take advantage of these tools that he did not have as a child or as a teenager, and probably even as a kid, because I'm sure he wanted to do something like this when he was real young. So after hearing weeks of him, because I was an avid listener, hearing weeks of him telling the listeners to, why don't you start something and put it out there into the world? And I finally, I guess, got enough of a push to take that first step. And then Kelly and I, who graciously agreed to do this with me, it started off as a podcast and YouTube show, not necessarily with video on us talking, but I would put up images that reflected what we were discussing on the podcast. And then eventually I made it, I focused, I'm like, okay, my focus is too split. Let me just focus it on audio only. And then from there, I was able to slowly improve the content, and that's still my goal today, is to just continue to improve the content. But yeah, it was originally Kevin Smith, and I know for you that he's been a huge influence.
Yes, we'll leave it at that. Huge is definitely the best way to describe it. It was also the same call that I picked up when I did my first podcast. It was called Gluttons for Geekdom. Good time. We made it to 37 episodes, which was fitting considering Kevin Smith was the one who threw out the call. So 37 was pretty funny. I think that's why I made it to 37, if I'm not going to lie. But that's kind of what I want to do here a little bit. Not knocking him, but he has kind of stopped that. He like you said, he is just make something. As long as your dream doesn't involve killing small children, go ahead and make your dream count. Mm-hmm. But with us, no, I kind of wanted to push that a little bit further to say, if you're out there and you're like, oh man, these guys are making a podcast, that's awesome, I wish I could. You can. I think you just briefly put out there so much of, like, you could just do it on your phone. Just get something started and get it out there is definitely my first kind of advice, if you will. I do have also a article. If you want to read the full thing, go to podcastinsights.com/start-a-podcast. It had a lot of great stuff on it. But definitely my first thing is kind of what you said of, hopefully this is the push. This is the last time you hear, hey, start a podcast, before you actually start a podcast.
It always takes that extra push. Absolutely. And a lot of people, I think the most common thing that we get, or maybe you've heard this before too, but of people just don't know where to start. They don't know how you get it on Apple Podcasts. And that's the other misconception of, it needs to be on Apple Podcasts and then it's a podcast. It's like, well, it needs to be everywhere. Put it up everywhere. But, get a host. And I think we're going to go through that in a bit. But as long as you get it up on a host, that host, if they're a reputable one, it will put it up on Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and all of these places, with you just uploading it once. The host will take care of all of those things.
Amazing. Yes, that was one of my biggest misconceptions, and we will get to that. Get a good podcast host. We'll talk about who we do. But the first thing is choosing a topic and a name is what's on this list that I wanted to talk to you about. How did you guys come about The Reasons I'm Broke? It's such a good name, but it's also very distinct. Nothing else sounds like it. Do you remember how that came about?
That was all Paula Kelly, who was my previous, she's my wife and she was my previous co-host. And I don't remember the other names that we were going with, but I was spitballing ideas. And then she's just like, I'm like, well, something that encompasses what we talk about, Batman and DC Comics, and we've got statues and comic books. And after 2 or 3 names that I put out, she finally said, what about The Reasons I'm Broke? And I thought it was hilarious. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And that's how that came up. And I don't know where she got it from or how she came up with it, but it might have just been, I mean, she's got her own creativity to her as well. And she sees me as like, she knows I used to draw and I do this and I do Photoshop work, but she's got a creative edge to her too. And anytime she's the idea factory. She's just great at it and coming up with solutions. I think that's huge. And I think that's why she's in the position that she is at her job. But it was all Palpa-Kelly, but I couldn't tell you how exactly she pulled it.
Damn, all hail Emperor Palpa-Kelly again for that, because it is such a good pull of a name. For me, it just rhymed. That's all that it took for me.
It's a great name, yeah.
Thank you. I was starting almost kind of like you. When this podcast started, it was supposed to be one co-host every time, and then it evolved. Now I have people coming in and out, but at first it was buds because of weed. People call weed bud. And we're also buds. And bros, we don't know anything about each other because we had just met, and superheroes just kind of rhymed. And those were the things that I definitely wanted to talk about. And just making it rhyme was fine enough for me. I don't know why. I'm just so corny when it comes to rhyming, but if it rhymes, I'm like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah, and what works with yours too is it's clear. Okay, I know what this is about. That's one thing that if I could go back and redo the name, I probably would have done something more specific to nerddom, because the reasons I'm broke could be financing, it could be stocks, it could be a number of things. I think when people see the artwork, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It's nerd shit, things you don't need, things that are not essential. But that's why I like yours is like, I know what this is about. It's about marijuana, it's about superheroes, and it's about friendship. It's all in the name.
So that would be my top advice to anybody who wanted to start one, is figure out what you want to talk about, and then just think about something fun to say, something fun that means something to you, also makes you laugh, and just go with it. I would also double check, go to the Facebook, go to all the social media sites, and look for that name first, because the last thing you want to do is start something and then have the same name as somebody else and have to redo all your shit.
Exactly. Very first thing you should be doing is Googling that name that you found and put podcast at the end of it, just in case someone's already pulled it up. Apple Podcast is a huge one. As you said, you don't want to be commissioning artwork or putting together logos before finding out, wait a second, there's already 3 other podcasts that have this name, or there's this other YouTube show that has that thing. So that's a huge one that not many people do. They'll just run with it with the first name that they're like, that's cool. And they'll start creating things and later find out that, oh, wait, someone already has that name. Someone has that URL.
My name's Sam. Your name is Mitchell. We do a podcast. We should name it Smodcast. Nobody could think of that. That's just a Kevin Smith reference for anybody who didn't get it. But yeah, go ahead and just double check that nobody else is using that. And then what we brought up, the next one on this is the cover art creation, which I think is something great. Like you said, maybe your name, I never thought of it that way, but now that you put it that way, I could see what you mean. Of like, oh, it could be a finance show. But since I already knew what the show was about, it's never really clicked on that edge, because also your cover art is a superhero kind of guy with your own logo, or you have your Broke at Core logo that's always around. So it kind of shifts right on out of there. Like, it's perfect.
One thing I will say about cover artwork is, at least these days, Apple Podcasts does not like URLs in your artwork, and also Twitter logos or Facebook logos that don't belong, that you don't hold the copyrights to. So that's one thing, that if you are designing a show logo, make sure that there's no URLs in it. And that's something that Apple Podcasts will never feature your show on the top charts if you have any of those elements.
Hashtag fucking pro tip, man. I knew this was a good idea to do this with you. Listen, you're just dropping fucking bombs of truth and great things for everybody, man. Thank you so much.
Just landmines that I hope people avoid, that maybe I didn't on the early days.
I stepped on these so you can learn.
Yeah, that's right.
So now you have the idea, you maybe have some artwork. My next tip is definitely just put it out there, guys. We were talking about a server or a host. Mine is Podbean. So like we're talking about, I just go to Podbean once and I'm saying, here, take this audio, and it puts it in all the places that I want through an RSS feed. And anybody who's like, oh my God, they're talking computers, it's really not that hard, guys. I was very not good with it. It walks you through it. It knows that everybody's out there. I'm going to vouch for Podbean and say it's idiot proof.
And I personally use Liberated Syndication, Libsyn, Libsyn, and very similar to Podbean. Podbean's great. Blueberry's great. They're all very cognizant of, okay, we need to make sure that the forms are clearly labeled. Here's where you put your title. Here's where you put the URL. Here's where you put your artwork. And very handy, because the bigger hosts, like the ones, we're talking about here today, are the ones that are already connected to Apple, and Apple has once you put it up on Apple Podcasts, then it will show a lot of feeds, smaller podcast catchers like Pocket Casts. They pull from Apple's feed, and that's how it ends up on those other devices and programs and apps. So definitely you want to go through a host, and as you said, it's easier than you'd expect, and especially after you've done a few episodes, you start developing a format for your description, and then you can more or less just copy, paste, and then update the information. Like, okay, well, this is the header this week, this is the title this week, and there is a monthly cost. I don't know if the others do like an annual fee, but there is a monthly cost to put them up there. But you don't want to go with anything free, like I think it's Burn Feed, and then there's another big one right now. The free hosts are the ones you want to avoid, because they own your content. As soon as you upload it to those places, they can do what they'd like with your content. Even after you're like, you know what, I want to leave and I go to a different host, they can monetize your episodes. They can monetize whatever you've already uploaded. Whereas with Blueberry, Libsyn, the bigger hosts, they say, the good ones are going to say, no, this is all yours to own, and you can use them however you want. We will never use your content to monetize it. And the same goes with if something goes down with your content. Let's say there's copyright music. Again, that's not on us.
That's definitely another thing to bring up, is you're probably going to have to spend some money. Not a lot. You don't have to go crazy for production, start a podcast. But like Daniel just said, and again, I can't say how thankful I am that you're dropping all this, because that was so smart and something that maybe people wouldn't ever think of. But as this creator, as this artist, like we were saying, you got to protect yourself and your artwork.
Mm-hmm.
You're not putting in all this work so somebody on another podcast or somebody on another platform, could take that work and be like, this is mine now and I'm going to exploit it. No. I would definitely 110% agree. Put in the time to find the one that works for you. Make sure that they're not going to steal your stuff, and then pay them. Podbean, I know it was a one-time. They sell it like, oh, it's only $10 a month, but they want $120 up front.
Gotcha.
Just go ahead and put in the money and go ahead and do it, because I feel protected.
Mm-hmm.
And like you were talking about too, with the routine that I have now of keeping my descriptions the same, the names similar. It's just a copy and paste, and it has become so much easier to do that through them. Definitely go out, find a good host, and pay them.
And once they actually start showing up on these different feeds, that's when you'll see all the stats start to roll in. And anytime you start putting out a new episode, that's when all of these hosts will automatically start downloading these episodes as you're enjoying this one, straight to your phone and ready to listen to whenever they'd like, which is really nice. I don't think we've gone through this part yet, but one of the things that I hear a lot when you're starting a show is to do like a 0 episode. And then I hear a number of things like do a 0 episode and then trash it and then do another one. And that'll be your first episode, because then you can kind of get a little more comfortable with where you're aiming to go. And your show's going to evolve over time. It might be a whole different show in a year, or in 2 episodes or in 3 episodes. You're going to kind of shape it based on what your interests are. You're going to see what works and what doesn't if you stick with it long enough. But the main thing is, if you are going to put out a show monthly or weekly, being consistent is the biggest thing, because your listenership, as you build it over time, and it is a marathon. It's not something that you're going to spike up in downloads from one month to the next. It's going to take years to build up a listenership, and it's not going to involve just putting out an episode and calling it a day. You got to be out there talking about it, promoting it, pushing your episode. And there's right and wrong ways to do that too, but that's a whole different thing. But the most important thing is, if you're going to release an episode on a certain day of the week at a certain time, make sure it's up at that certain time, because the listener is going to expect that show. It's going to become a part of their routine. If they are used to listening to your show, the first thing they do when they get on Monday and your episode comes out Friday or whatever, make sure it's ready for them for that day. And that's why it's so important to stick with a day, stick with a time, and that way it's doing your listenership a huge favor.
I'm just going to start calling you Miyagi for the rest of this episode. That's
again, it's just shit mistakes I made.
And it's stuff that I'm going through now. This will be episode 30, if I'm not mistaken. And in those 30 episodes, a lot has changed. A lot more is going to change. It did not end up where I thought it was going to. But if you go back and listen to my episode 1, that is something I brought into this already knowing. That is the one nugget of truth that is in all podcasts, if you ask me. The number one thing that I think you, the podcast creator or soon-to-be creator, should hold on to is that it's okay for it to change.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to change. It's going to evolve. It's just the nature of it. When you start doing it more and more, you're going to realize, oh, I didn't like that as much, or I really like that. You know, I didn't start with first episode like, oh, you know, Justice League, who would you want to smoke with and what power would they take on? But now I've done that in like 4 different episodes and I like that. So I'm going to continue to add that. So for you to take this ball of clay and have an idea of what you want it to look like, and if it's not shaping up to be that way, don't trash it. Don't think it's not going to happen. It's not going. Like you just said, it'll take years for stuff to really start popping and feeling right. Just stick with it and don't be afraid of the change is going to be my number one, my little nugget of truth. I felt like I had to bring something to the fucking table after you just dropped science for all that time.
No, you're right, though. You got to keep it going. You got to keep releasing it every week, month, whenever you are putting it out, and you got to keep pushing it online. And the number one thing that I've seen most people quit podcasting over is the stats, because they're like, oh, my episode doesn't have thousands of downloads after 10 episodes. I think I'm just going to quit. And it's like, no, again, this is a marathon. You got to, if you really enjoy doing this is why it's so key to make sure you are enjoying podcasting, because guess what? It's not going to be a thing that in a year from now, you're like, I'm going to be the next Kevin Smith. It doesn't work that way. You know, and a year from now, you might have 20 more listeners than you normally have. You might bring your average up a little bit. Then this all depends on the topic that your show is about. You know, if yours is a comedy show, you're probably going to have more downloads than usual. If your show is about, you know, sewing, then, you know, that's a little more of a smaller, narrower market, but there's also a smaller listenership. So 100 listeners per episode, it might be huge in that market. So you got to kind of gauge your expectations with what you're actually making your show about. And again, it doesn't happen overnight, and it shouldn't, because, you know, my show 2 years ago, I'm like, you know what, it could have used a lot more work. And that's how it's going to continue to go, because you don't want your worst product to be, you know, it's not going to be the thing that blows up and becomes huge for everyone out there. It's going to be a thing that you improve upon, and that you, again, there's that word, curate over time. And as long as you're enjoying it all the way through that journey, you know, the quality is going to keep going up, and then more and more listeners are going to go, you know what, this is, you know, they're going to respond to the quality of the content more than they're going to respond to the equipment that you use, more than they're going to respond to the artwork that you use. All of that stuff takes a back seat. Content is number one. Keep improving the quality of the content, and people will stick around in spite of a shitty mic, in spite of a terrible internet connection. As long as the content is great, they will stick around.
Couldn't have put it any better myself. Again, sir, I can't say thank you enough for adding so much to this section. I really do hope, if anybody's listening to this was their final straw of like, fuck this, I'm going to go and start a podcast, because you can. I really, 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 I'm not lying, not blowing smoke, not trying to create content for content's sake. I really, truly do hope that you go out and start your own podcast now.
And ask questions. I think you and I are open to that too. If you have any questions and you want help, I think Nick and I are there to help, and we help each other out too. So, you know, we're more than happy to help out others in creating that thing that hopefully they enjoy doing for a number of years.
Man, I'm just going to name you the host of this show, and I'm the co-host for the rest
No
of this,
way.
because again, you're just like, God damn, he's right, guys. He's fucking right. I'll answer questions. I don't know. I'm not going to say I have all the answers. Obviously, Daniel has much more than me, but yes, I will fucking help. Goddamn right. That door is open for a lot of people. If you have questions, definitely, yes, 100% hit us up. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you're on everything else. So if you guys have a LinkedIn, you can even hit up Daniel on that. But all those things, go to them, follow us, and hit us up with questions. Goddamn right, dude. With that, we could settle on out of the bros section and get into the superhero section, where we're going to talk about Mortal Kombat, the most recent Mortal Kombat. So I think at the very beginning I said it, but I'm going to say it one more time. A, spoilers, and B, neither of us were big fans of this movie. So if you're going to sit here and think like we're going to raise this up, not too much. I'm prepared to do a pretty healthy amount of shitting on this. How about you?
Yeah, and it's sad shitting. Like, I'm not going to be, it's not one of those things where I don't think you or I enjoy shitting on that product, but it's what's going to happen. It's more like a, God damn, it's a shame. And it sucks, but we got to talk about it.
It does suck, because I was able to see some extras, and the people who made this movie really loved Mortal Kombat. And really, I'm not going to say anybody goes into a movie trying to make a bad movie, but I could just tell that these motherfuckers really loved Mortal Kombat and really wanted to make a good movie. And in my opinion, as somebody who's not too deep, so maybe that's something else I could have or should have stated, like, I'm not deep in on this. I'm going to take this movie as a quote-unquote virgin, as if I didn't ever hear about anything Mortal Kombat before. which is basically kind of true, and just go that this story didn't make sense to me. So I could not get around that to begin with. So though nobody tried to, though I don't want to poo-poo on it too bad, somebody had to have watched this from beginning to end and gone, wait.
Yeah, you're right. The story and the character development were probably the two biggest things with the film. I mean, people can talk about the CGI and the special effects all they want. The story is king, and so is the character development, and those two were unfortunately the weakest part of the film.
Yeah, I could definitely put character development on the back burner for an ensemble piece like this. You know, if they didn't get to everyone really well, I would get that. They didn't get to anyone well. I don't understand why anybody was doing pretty much anything they were doing. And the other thing that really disappointed me right off the bat we'll talk about is the fighting. It's a fight thing, but there was just so many cuts that there was sometimes I couldn't see what was happening.
For a movie that had I'm assuming they hired these actors because of the choreography experience in the past, and from the looks of it, they have done these kinds of films before. They didn't let the camera capture a whole lot of that, and it's a shame because that's kind of why a lot of us are there, is to watch the fighting. The Mortal Kombat 1995 film, and that's not a terrible film, it's not amazing, but I think it's a perfectly enjoyable movie. That one lets you see all the flips and the kicks and the falling downstairs, all of that stuff. And this one, as you said, it kind of, and I don't know if it's a product of its time, but it gave you the quick cuts just to give you this air of like, it's exciting, look at it, but it's like, no, let us see the fighting. That's part of this is why these people are here.
For sure. So to deep dive into it, I am going to say this movie just came out. It's exclusive on... No, it's not. It's in theaters right now as well, right?
Yeah, it is.
So you can see it on HBOMAX, but you can still go to the theater for it. It's fresh new, April 23rd. The little blurb that they tell me on IMDb is MMA fighter Cole Young seeks out Earth's greatest champions in order to stand against the enemies of Outworld in a high-stakes battle for the universe. Dang, yeah, and that's about as much as we get into, and I really don't understand it. Let's just start at the beginning. So the beginning is awesome. I am going to say that. And unfortunately for Warner Brothers, in an attempt to drum up some excitement, they released this opening like 7 or 8 days before the movie released. And in my opinion, they gave away the cow, and they were like, all right, come buy the milk later, or figure out what I'm trying to say there. But it was the best scene, and they gave it away for free on YouTube right out in the beginning.
That really was the best part of the film, and I think it's because, are you familiar with Mortal Kombat Legends?
No, nothing.
So this film was originally set to be basically a theatrical version of those YouTube shorts. So this filmmaker did this I think it was a 5-minute thing of, here's how I would do Mortal Kombat. And he had a great fight sequence there between Baraka and Johnny Cage. So he had his little action there, and all of these heroes were in modern times, and here's Scorpion, and he's a serial killer, and here's all of this, and that was his pitch to Warner Brothers, and they said, this is great, here's some money, go ahead and make some YouTube shorts out of it. And he made 2 seasons, and the 2 episodes that featured Scorpion and Sub-Zero were that opening that you're describing. It sets up the rivalry between the two, the revenge story, who these characters are, who Hanzo is. And it really compelling on that in the YouTube version. And those were so successful for him. He almost got a season 3, but instead was attached to make a movie version of it. And that's what this was. And he eventually fell out of it, and they brought on another director, different screenwriters, and they've had since changed the story into what it ended up being today. But that's why that beginning is still what it is, because it is that YouTube story. And I'm assuming part of the original script that he had worked on. And that's why I found that to be the most compelling portion of the movie. But then they're like, okay, did you enjoy that? As you mentioned, Nick, like the best part of the film? Okay, well, we're not going to see any of that story until the very end, kind of. And then I'm like, all right, well, why do I care about anything in between now?
Yeah, why the fuck do I give a shit about what just happened then? Oh, you're going to give me 3 seconds twice of like a weird flashback of one of these characters in hell, and then at the very end, he's going to show up. But why? Yeah, it was very disappointing. I also heard that opening mirrors, there's an animated movie, even available on HBO Max right now. Mm-hmm. I think it's called Scorpion's Revenge. And from what I saw on the internet, I didn't watch it myself, that mirrors the opening in this as well, of Scorpion coming and fucking up House Sub-Zero. No, Sub-Zero coming and fucking up House Scorpion, excuse me. And that's why Scorpion's like, I'm going to fuck this guy up.
And they didn't make it clear, and unless you know Mortal Kombat, you know why Sub-Zero killed Scorpion and went after his family. But all he says here was for the King Lui or Lin Kuei it was. And to anyone else, it's like, what the fuck does that mean? But if you watch Mortal Kombat Legends, or if you're familiar with Mortal Kombat, you understand the two not tribes, but the two factions of assassins and why they, for generations, were at odds with each other. But in this, it's like, why did Sub-Zero do all that? Because he's evil? What the hell does that mean? Lin Kuei, what the fuck is that? And I don't know if there was a scene that was cut out at the beginning or not. We're learning now that this movie was well over 2 hours long, and Warner Brothers mandate, just like Godzilla vs. Kong, this same thing happened to this. But otherwise, we don't know why any of that opening happened.
I had always just assumed that it was the evil Black Eyes guy, the guy at the end who's like, I'm gonna suck your soul. I figured that he was just like, one day there's gonna be a prophecy and like the bloodline of this motherfucker is gonna stop us, so just go back and kill him now. That's why I thought. I didn't know the idea of two factioning camps or two groups of assassins not liking each other, and that's why this happened, was not on my radar at all. So if it was a scene in the story, I missed it, or it was cut, because I just thought he was there to kill the bloodline.
And I would have loved that explanation, even like, oh, that's different than the whatever. Cool, but it's an explanation. And that would have taken seconds to establish.
No, I feel like it was put in there later, where it's just like, oh, okay, that's why that happened. Great. But now we're 40 minutes into it, and that happened like a while. Okay. All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
Does he mention in the movie that he got sent back there to kill Hanzo? Like, I know they say that there's a prophecy that a descendant of Hanzo is going to kill, or is going to put an end to this, but does he at all mention sending Sub-Zero back to that period?
No, I think we're just led to believe that he's that old, that somehow on Otherworld he doesn't age, and he's just been around this long.
Right.
I don't know. Again, I'm not sure if it's said that, because he wasn't in the quote-unquote traditional Sub-Zero. Like, he didn't recognize or did not identify himself as Sub-Zero yet. So maybe he went to hell too and got his special uniform, and then the Outworld Suck Soul guy was like, all right, I guess I can use him for like a henchman. Like, I feel like there's so much that was unexplained, and they were just like, look, they're fighting. Isn't that what you wanted? It's like, yeah, but why? Maybe let's just one why, just one.
And we saw the moment where he identified as Sub-Zero, because Shang Tsung kept calling him Bi-Han. He's like, no, Bi-Han is dead. I'm Sub-Zero now. And then they cut. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Where did that come from too? Don't they know each other at this point? Is that for the audience so that we know his name? Yeah.
It reminds me of that movie. Have you ever seen Kung Pao Enter the Fist?
No.
It's really strange. Steve Auden, I don't know how to say his last name. Anyway, he photo imposed himself into an old Kung Fu movie. And it's amazing. Super silly, and it's really fucking funny. I think you could watch it for free on YouTube if you don't mind a few commercials every now and then. But anyway, like, everything's dubbed over, and there's this one guy, and he goes, you'll call me Betty now. And it's like, why? And it's like, and they just skip over it. And that's how I feel like this scene was. It's like, call me Sub-Zero. Okay.
Right. Weird. Dead. Oh, why? What happened? We're not going to tell you. Okay.
It's buried. Don't worry about it.
Right.
So from there, we go into the current story. We get to see this descendant, who is Cole. And Cole is an MMA fighter, and he's not a very good one. He gets his ass beat in the very opening. We don't have to go too far into that. His daughter, Emily, is his ring man or ring person, which is really weird. I don't have kids, but I'm not going to bring my kid to an underground MMA fight ever to be my ring person and watch me get the shit kicked out of myself. It's neither here nor there, but we also get introduced to Jax at the same time, who doesn't understand what the fuck a birthmark is.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a weird tattoo. And it's like, no, he was born with it. What do you mean? It's a birthmark? And it's like, what the fuck did you need that question for? Like, who doesn't? What the fuck is happening here? That part bothered the piss out of me. Who needs to be explained what a birthmark is or what it means to be born with a mark?
And that was something that people ran with on the internet. And it's like, no, well, that was just for the trailer. And then you watch the fucking movie.
Well, if you watch the movie, they switched the line. They thought that they were going to be clever. So I think the trailer is something like, he was born with it. What? It's a birthmark? And in the movie, it's a birthmark. What? He was born with it. As if, like, that doesn't make the question of what any less fucking stupid.
Yep.
The one cool part about that, and what I will give them, though I didn't write down the full thing, is so Jax says to Cole, oh, you're Cole Young. You're the guy who took down blank blank in that fight. And Cole goes, oh, that was a while ago. whatever name he says is a combination of the names of the Mortal Kombat creators in 1992.
Ed Boon and I almost said Peter Laird, but that's Turtles. Jason something. But Ed Boon's the big one right now because he's still very active with the franchise.
Nice. But yeah, it reminded me of our Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles discussion where like at the very end of that, Sam Rockwell's like, if you go to the Eastman and Laird warehouse, something's there for you.
Yes, a little nod.
I love that. I don't know why I've always found that. Like it's in my opinion, it's respectful. If you're going to use these guys' idea, give them. That's all I'd want. You know, if there was a Buds, Bros, and Superheroes movie one day, like in the background, all I'd want is like Nick James, Pancake's house or something stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a little something, especially well, even though Ed Boon wasn't promoting this movie at all, but you still got to put it out there. Like Alan Moore, shit, he doesn't want any adaptations of his work, but I'd still be like, you know what, still put a little something in there for him. You know, we wouldn't have any of this without him.
After that kind of weird thing of like, hey, we should talk and be friends, and this will lead you to trust me later when a bad guy's hunting you down, we go to Outworld for the first time, and I don't understand why. You know, they don't set up this lore of all these different realms, it kind of seems like, of why they are what they are, but we go there for a little bit, and then we come back to see Jax and Sub-Zero fight.
Yeah, and that's the first time, I guess, he's able to... And I don't know if these Mortal Kombat characters had been going through and murdering other Earthrealm fighters, but that was there. I had a misconnection there of, okay, is the tournament about to happen? And if so, why did anyone wait this long to go after these fighters? Have they not been able to find these people? Is that what Sonya Blade and Jax were out trying to do? And I just had a lot of questions about this. Why wasn't Raiden more involved in trying to protect these fighters since the 10th tournament is coming up and they need to win it? It seems like Raiden really took a backseat to all of this.
Agreed. And if anybody's out there listening, banging their heads, please explain to us, because I don't get that either. Mortal Kombat is supposed to be a tournament that happens between these worlds, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if I'm not mistaken, and again, please stop me, and anybody on the internet correct me, the bad guy is like, if we fuck these people up before the competition, before Mortal Kombat happens, they'll have nobody to send to Mortal Kombat, and we'll win by default, and then we'll finally get to be evil all the time.
Right, they'll take over Earthrealm. That'll be a part of their world as well. If they win the 10th tournament, which this would have been the 10th. Would
have been, but now we're saying Mortal Kombat technically never happened in this movie.
No, it didn't. And we did not get a tournament. And some people argue that at the end, Cole forced a tournament by saying, okay, you go after this guy, you go after that person, and we'll take Sub-Zero at the end. But to me, that's not what the tournament was in the games, is in the movies, is in any of the lore. You can't just say, all right, well, we're going to go and each fight these different guys, and that'll be the tournament. It's like, are you the guy that decides when Mortal Kombat takes place? I feel like there's a structure here. No? Okay.
They kept talking about old gods and different powerful people, but it made no sense. I mean, to liken it to something today, be like UFC 38 taking place on Saturday, and the guy's going and fighting on Thursday night in a parking lot going, all right, that's what we did. Like, you guys saw that, right? It was so strange. I cannot get over that part of the story of this movie's called Mortal Kombat, and I don't think we saw Mortal Kombat.
No, we didn't. And Sub-Zero doesn't kill Jax. So one of the did he have a? Yeah, he did have a marking. Yeah, because he gets the arms later. So he doesn't kill one of the Earth fighters that he was sent, but I guess he's mainly trying to get to Cole, who shouldn't really be a problem anyway because he's not a great fighter, and that's something that Jax brings up, like it or not, we're stuck with you. and that was another weird part of, okay, well, that's something one of the listeners brought up on Discord of, so our main character is a terrible fighter in this Mortal Kombat movie, who I guess becomes a great fighter by the end, or the other fighters are so bad that he just seems like a great fighter.
It's really left up there for interpretation because he does kind of suck the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make sense. I mean, even Jax, why do you think Sub-Zero would even leave him alive if he's trying to go through, other than the fact of the movie needs him later? So again, just kind of adding to my, what are they trying, that they're just trying to maim them all before? Who knows? But Jax does lose his arms, and in doing so, he's like, you got to go find Sonya. She'll help you. And again, I got stuck on the fact that Cole was like, okay, random guy who I just met, I will go and do what you said. Thank you for giving me this car. Like, that seemed strange.
I guess just from the seeing someone who can control ice powers, and you're like, okay, I should probably find some answers. That's the one thing that I can think of his driving force to continue down this path. I did like when they do get to Sonya's and she has like the board of, and at this point now it's like a cliche thing of here's the lore of the thing you're watching, but I didn't mind it because you get to see a little Night Wolf, you get to see previous fighters in there, which I thought was kind of cool that they made Sonya, instead of like this only military person, she's kind of a conspiracy theorist, and she's someone that's been studying Mortal Kombat for years and been trying to track down the Earthrealm fighters. It wasn't Raiden doing the job, it was Sonya. And Jax.
I'm sorry. It's so funny that you said that, though, because in my notes, when I bring up Sonya, next to hers is Dumb Wall. Because I hate that. I like you said, it is kind of becoming a trope in movies, but, you know, we could put stuff in order, guys. It doesn't all have to be all crazy like on all the walls. Why don't we get a binder going? Or like a Google form or something, you know? We can scroll through pictures to get those same images, but that was just me kind of trying to be funny and be a dick about it. But I did like, you know, the one guy, you're right in the fact that they did show you a bunch of other things that are like, hey, you know, this character, like the Native American guy. What was his name?
Night Wolf.
Fuck, dude, that was a great character design. I did look that up. He makes an appearance in another movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that, dude, fuck, man, compared to what we're about to talk about with like the spinning hat guy and shit, I would have liked to see that guy better. That's a badass character design.
Yeah, he's really cool, but many suspect that in today's climate, they didn't want to use a Native American guy, so they're like, we'll just reference him.
I don't want to touch that. We'll geez.
Just like we're doing, they were avoiding any type of cancellation, so that's where they're like, here's the reference, and here's these other characters that we're probably safe with.
Yeah, let's give you Kano instead, and he's just going to talk a mile a minute for the rest of this time, and I would love to know how you thought of him. I thought that he was so fucking annoying. I couldn't, like, that's when the movie really was, I was starting to check out, was when Kano showed up.
Well, I guess he was supposed to be some of that comedic relief, which it was kind of injected in this movie. I don't know if you got the same thing, but I was just like, okay, we're getting kind of a lot of jokes for a Mortal Kombat film, and it's kind of reaching the same feeling that I had with Godzilla vs. Kong of, you know, that's fine if you want to put in some comedy, but this much? Really? In a Mortal Kombat movie? You know, it's a little weird, and that was his whole thing of kind of poking fun at the ridiculousness of this lore and what we're in, and that was his whole thing. I didn't find them obnoxious. I thought it was fine, but I also didn't think he was charming or funny or whatever. I was just like, okay, so he's there to prove that Earthrealm fighters can also be pieces of shit. Like, you don't have to be a good person to have that birthmark.
It's even said that he stole it from somebody whose neck he slit.
Right.
Like, he's not meant to be a good guy. His comedic thing, if you want to call it that, I'm sorry, but I am going to have to disagree with you. And obnoxious was the best way that I could think to describe him. I found him completely obnoxious. I thought the humor was so out of place, and I don't mind a little humor every now and then. What I do mind is, A, let's jam it down your throats, and B, it was all pop culture references. Or at least a good percent. So it wasn't even like he was saying just funny offhand things to be a dick or to be that, you know, kind of funny guy. It was just, it was like that South Park. They have the thing called the Remember Berries. And, you know, he made a reference. And it's like, oh, remember this reference I'm talking about? Oh, you like that. My movie's good because I reference that. And it's, oh, dude, that the entire thing. And then also, too, him like, I'm kind of a comic book artist. It's like, Jesus Christ, how many fucking things do we want to fucking give this guy? Like, what the fuck? If you can't tell by the talking getting higher and faster, like everything about this fucking character bothered the piss out of me from beginning to end.
So easily your least favorite part of this movie, then.
Oh, yeah. Again, next to my notes, all it says is Kano sucks. Just because I didn't find him likable at all. We're going to skip a little bit just so I could stay on him. The way he finds his arcana, that whole scene was, I'm not lying. It got me physically angry. I was sitting there going, I'm wasting my time right now. There's stuff I could be doing. And I hardly feel like that through a movie. But it was just so paper thin of like, oh, they're baiting him. They're going to get him angry. So he finds his arcana. It was, oh God, it was bad. I didn't want to watch anything with him at all.
Pass me the egg roll. Whoosh. And it was very easy for him to unlock it. It was easy for everyone else to unlock theirs except for our main character for whatever reason. He even sucks at unlocking his arcana.
Yeah, he sucks at everything because especially too, it's even insult to injury. Sonya, I believe it's called spoilers, but I'm sorry. Sonya kills a fucking dumb shit and gets his little dragon mark, and then she comes back with her arcana. Like, it's not even shown her discovering it. She just comes back and blows a hole through fucking Venom with the wing lady, and boom, just dead.
I wonder if there was a scene too of her maybe unlocking that arcana. There's so much missing in this that could have enriched the story.
You would think, but goddamn Warner Brothers apparently fucked that shit up too and just cut the shit out of that, because that bothered me. 3 of them, to kind of jump back, Sonya, Kano. This is the other thing too, is like I had to write down their names. I believe we talked about this when we talked about Kong vs. Godzilla. Like, I don't remember any of the characters' names. So good job on character development, guys, because I don't give a fuck about any of them. I just kind of made up my own names for them. And in my head, that's how I wanted to reference them, but I didn't really want to, just so other people who were listening could know who I'm talking about. But this whole time has just been very hard to keep their names straight. So Jax, Sonya, and Kano come upon Liu Kang when they're just wandering in the desert. And that's the next time we meet more Mortal Kombat people. He could do fireballs. I thought that effect looked really good. I thought he was an okay part of it. He did his job. He brings them back to the place in which they're all supposed to train, where we also meet Kung Lao.
Yeah.
Now, am I mistaken, or didn't Danny Rand train in Kung Lao to become the Iron Fist?
That's not, I don't know, but I know I've seen him in something Marvel. I feel like it is something Marvel we've seen him in.
No, I mean, the character name Kung Lao, I think, is a destination in the Marvel universe where, like, the character of Danny Rand has to go to a place that's called Kung Lao, and that's where he learns to become the Iron Fist.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know that. As far as Marvel, my knowledge is very, very light, especially the last couple of years.
Agreed. I thought, like, the whole time they were saying that, I was like, that sounds so familiar. I can't be sure. There are some Marvel crossovers, so we are talking about Scorpion is in one of the Avengers movies. He's a Yakuza boss. And then who's the guy with the lightning? What was his name?
Raiden?
Yeah, he's one of the guys who hangs out with Thor. Lady Saving the Warriors 3, he's one of the Warriors 3.
Okay, gotcha. Along with Shazam, right?
Along with, what do you mean?
The same actor that plays Shazam. I thought he was one of the 3 Thor's friends. He's one of those guys too.
Dude, if Zachary Levi's in that, that'd be great. I didn't think so.
But he has blonde hair, so he looks really weird if you go back and watch the movie.
Dude, I'm going to have to go back and watch the movie, because I thought that was the guy from Once Upon a Time who was in there playing the guy we're talking about.
Well, not the guy with the longer blonde hair, but we'll pull up IMDb and you'll see.
I really thought that Kung Lao was the place in which Danny Rand had to go to. I could be mistaken, but Kung Lao in this has a hat that spins, and that's his thing.
His arcana, yeah.
His arcana is he's a super duper good hat wielder. In the game, they did pay a little homage. Like, apparently when like the hat falls, he can teleport up into it. Mm-hmm. They did that in the movie, and I was like, that I liked. That I thought was pretty cool, because right in the middle of this movie, the bad guy comes to the good guy's headquarters, and he's like, we should talk about how I'm going to try to kill you before Mortal Kombat happens. And Electricity Man's like, I have this place surrounded by electricity. You're not going to do that. And they're like, okay, we'll come back later.
Right. And they kept influencing Kano and some of these other characters. Cabal was talking to Liu Kang, I think, or Kung, I think it was Liu Kang. And they're just allowed to communicate, and Raiden's cool with this, and nothing could go wrong.
No, we're just going to, as long as we stay between the electricity, nothing bad's going to happen. We're going to go find our arcanas. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Well, the whole idea of arcanas, do you think that was a result of, and I don't know if you remember this, but Cole, the whole reason Cole is there and it's not a Mortal Kombat character is Warner Brothers mandated that they make an original character for the film so that the audience can, I guess, relate to these characters. I don't know what their reasoning was, but without Cole, do you think there would be no arcanas, that it would just be, powered people from Earthrealm and from the other side that just have these skills, and that's why they're chosen to fight in this tournament?
Maybe. To be honest, the clusterfuck of what an arcana is very confusing to me. Do we all have them? Do I have an arcana, but I can't unlock it because I also don't have the Mortal Kombat mark? Like, do you need the mark first? Is it a 3-step process of, all right, you have one, then the mark, and then you get your ass kicked enough, and then it comes out? Like, the lore behind that had me fucking twisted from the beginning, again, of just going, what are we fucking talking about? Like, he's not Sub-Zero. Like, he can't just shoot a laser out of his eye. It had to be. I didn't get it. I just did not understand it. So maybe I feel like Warner Brothers again just kind of stuck their foot in their mouth of trying to mandate too much. I don't understand. Like, now that you say that, I didn't know that they had to force a new character into this.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I don't think we would have had this weird, lazy thing of, well, Arcanas, everyone has it, but you need the tattoo. But technically, everyone can summon these powers, but you just need to kill someone with the Mortal Kombat tattoo and then train, and then you can unlock it eventually. But who knows what it is? It's random. It could be good. It could be terrible. And I mean, I guess it's an explanation. I don't know if I could have written anything better, but I think the audience would have been perfectly satisfied with, these people just have especially in the era of superheroes, these people have superhuman abilities. Let's go.
Exactly. Just stop right there. Why? I don't even think you need to ask that question in a Mortal Kombat movie. All of a sudden, this guy starts throwing fireballs. Like, all right, it's a Mortal Kombat movie.
No one asked
to see a guy with 4 arms. We'll be okay.
That's right. Yeah. No one asked in the original movie or in the games, why can he freeze people? Because we'll explain that later. It doesn't matter. No one cares. When they try to explain the characters in the future games, that's when people are like, oh, that's kind of cool. But no one needed it.
No, we really didn't need anything. But they continued to shove it down our throats of, we need to now get into the sand pit and beat the shit out of you until your Arcana comes out, because that's the only way we know how to do it.
And how long were they training? A day or two?
Maybe. The entire timeline of, again, going back to this Mortal Kombat's going to happen soon. And then time passes and it never actually comes to. So it can't be that long. Maybe it's a day. We only see them eating dinner once, and we kind of made fun of the egg roll joke. And that's where dumb shit gets his Arcana. But we don't see Cole try too hard. And then all of a sudden, Lightning Guy's like, all right, just go home. Fuck you.
Right. Yeah. And that's when, for whatever, Goro, you get the Goro character, which is a staple of the Mortal Kombat lore, so they have to work him in there somewhere. And that's the one that they sent in seems to be a powerful fighter, to kill off Cole. And Cole is able, I guess that's what it took. There's a mirroring here between Cole's life and Scorpion's, which I thought, okay, that's kind of neat that they're setting that up, but that's again reminding me of that beginning part of the movie that I'm like, okay, that's the part that you had set up, and now we're getting nothing in between until now. But it's not, you didn't give us enough of it in between that we find it, or at least I found it at all interesting.
Agreed. That fight was pretty badass. It was cool. But the part that I liked about it the most is, even though I just kind of made fun of Lightning Guy going, all right, go home and fuck off. Bad, or Nega Lightning Guy, the opposite, whatever his name is, the Soul Sucker guy, sends Goro to go fuck him up. And that's how he gets his Arcana, which is what? We don't really know what it is. Like the little thing that his daughter makes him turns into a metal and wraps around his whole body, which is okay, I guess. It's weird.
It looked weird, yeah.
It did look very weird. And I also didn't like, I think that they thought it was cool, but like if you look, all the strands of this metal kind of follow his body.
Yes.
And will follow the muscles and how the strands of the muscles go. Except for the dragon birthmark, which was also kind of edged in there a little bit in that weird kind of wrapping, and all of a sudden made it look like he just had a target above his chest. I was like, that's fucking, come on, guys. I didn't enjoy that look at all.
No, I thought his powers were, and the thing is, they kept showing him absorbing some of those hits. You see the suit turn red, and he's got those batons, whatever the hell that was. But when he absorbs the hits, it's like, okay, so is he then gonna use those hits to like fire off something or anything? And no, it's showing you that it protects him, I guess. Or as one of my co-hosts said last week, those are the fires of hell, reminding you of Scorpion some more. And I'm like, you could have had cooler powers here too, again. But no, let's give him batons and a t-shirt, because you can see when he was like bending, and it's like, oh, okay, he's wearing a mesh like t-shirt. It doesn't really look like armor.
Yeah, for sure. If he were to get hit in that in real life, it did not come across hard in real life. It definitely looked like they just put something on this poor actor, and they're like, there you go. That's what you get. And he's just like, God
Here's
damn
your power.
But I did like, so that happens, and then he goes back. Lightning Lad comes and picks him back up and brings him back to where they're going to fight. And Lightning Boy says to Soul Sucker, he's like, thank you for sending your guy. It's what my guy needed to get his Arcana, so you just help me. I liked that. I thought that I didn't see that coming. I thought for sure Lightning Boy was just like, fuck off, you're worthless. But it turns out there was some sort of master plan behind all that for him. So I did. I'm not going to lie. I did like that.
And that's, I guess, when he has the confidence to tell everyone, okay, this is where we're saying we're gonna make this tournament happen. You go after him, you go after her, and we're gonna do this. And that's when we get 10 minutes of a compilation of everyone fighting each other at the end, near the end.
And that's all I really wanted this whole time. And most of that, I'm not going to lie, I will put down the bias. Now, a lot of that looked really good. We do get Kung Lao, his super hat when it does the buzzsaw thing. That was cool.
Yeah, splits the Bat Lady in half.
Yeah, and he gets the awesome line that I thought was great because I know enough about Mortal Kombat to understand this reference where he's kind of putting his hat back on and he goes, flawless victory.
Mm-hmm.
I know that happens in the game. If you're fighting someone and they don't touch you at all, right? They don't take any damage away from you, but you kill them. That's a flawless victory, right?
That's right.
See, I know one or two things. So that I even went, hey, they said that thing. Like, I get that reference. All right, cool. Like, I was expecting, of course, finish him because that one's the big one. But this one I didn't see coming. And I was like, that's actually kind of fun. I hope you stay around a while, Kung Lao, and then they kill him.
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming. I guess that's the loss of the character that motivates everyone else to come together and do the thing.
It definitely did something for Liu Kang when he had to fight Mask Man, because when he kills him with the fire dragon, he says, for Kung Lao. So he got his revenge there. That fight was okay. I didn't really understand Mask Man, or did he have powers, or he just had a cool hook sword, or the fuck was going on there?
I guess, so Cabal, I guess it was his two tire iron things or whatever they were, those, because he could like bring them out of nowhere, it seemed like. So I think that was his power. But as far as his suit, I think that was Kano's fault because he had said something to Kano about it needing a respirator now. So those were all just a result of him fighting your favorite guy, Kano.
Weird. So that went on and he died. Jack smacks the fuck out of somebody's head. That was great. My favorite part of that scene, though, if you noticed, it's really short, but Jax hits him and the bad guy with the hammer bad guy. I don't know his name. Obviously, I don't know any of their names. Sorry, listeners.
I don't think he's a character anyway in the games.
Good. Fuck him. But right before he gets his finish he does the Mortal Kombat kind of woozy wobble.
Yes.
Oh, I loved that. Again, as somebody who knows nothing about anything, just really small details, that was one of the ones I picked up. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's another. I see what you did there as well. Good job. That was cool.
When they were fighting on that bridge, I thought he was going to punch him down the bridge and there were going to be spikes at the bottom. I thought that was going to be the finisher.
Agreed, because that's sorry to sound like a broken record. That's one of the only other little things that I remember is one area where there were spikes on both the ceiling and the floor. And if you got your opponent right, you can either trip them into the floor or like uppercut them into the ceiling and get an instant win or some weird shit like that. But I was expecting that too, but instead we got the head pimple pop there, which
fatality,
kind of cool. Fatality.
It was just kind of like, oh, why that stage though? Like that's just me thinking as like someone who played the games, I guess. Like, oh, so why did we put him there then if we weren't going to use that particular stage? But it is what it is. There's like you said, a lot of positivity in the fights themselves. Even though, like you said, there's a lot of quick cutting still. But we got the fatalities, we got the blood and gore, we got to see the stage, so it was there.
And then Sonya and Kano duke it out back at her house. It was an okay fight. She wins. And then she gets her Arcana and she heads back to really quick save Cole with her blasting beams. The thing that bothered me about that, and I get it's a cool shot, is like, was that lady's spine unblastable?
Apparently.
Like, why was the spine the only thing left intact there? It just didn't make sense. It made sense from a looking standpoint. It looked really good, but it didn't make sense like why her spine was still there. I would have just preferred the big old hole straight through,
Just a clean hole, yeah. I think it's just for gore's sake. Like, it's Mortal Kombat. We need the gore.
Goddamn right. Yeah, and spines were a pretty big part in that too, right? You could rip off somebody's skull and dangle their spine.
That's right. Yep.
But she got her power. We talked about it earlier. She just kind of came back with it. And
thankfully.
Thanks a lot. So it kind of looks like they win, but of course Sub-Zero has some unfinished business. So they drag him back to the gym that we see in the beginning, like the training gym that Cole was at, but now it's all icy. And they've got to have their final showdown there, right?
And I thought that he had killed his family just like he had Hanzo's, and I don't know why he didn't. Because he shows him the little band that his little girl has, And it's like, okay, so maybe this means he killed his family. For whatever reason, Sub-Zero kept them alive. And I don't know why he didn't kill them like he did however many years ago with Hanzo's, because he seemed to have frozen them the same way.
And it would only make sense because if we are trying to kill the bloodline, to kill the little girl would have been the most obvious thing immediately. Because what, he was going to kill her after? You're right. The reason why he spared her or why they were alive when he showed up is really not given to us. And B, also how they are alive seems really weird because that's a lot of ice. Mm-hmm. They weren't dressed for like backpacking in the Alps or anything like that. They had fucking streetwear on and now they're in 2 or 3 inches of ice and they're like, I'll be okay as long as you get me out soon, Dad.
I need a towel and a little fireball and I'll be fine.
Bring me a cup of tea when you can. But that ending fight was pretty good. And we get Scorpion back, and he finally gets to say the get over here thing.
He said the thing, yeah.
He said the thing, but they put it in the trailer, so I wasn't really blown away at it.
Did you notice it was different than the trailer? They redubbed it?
No, I did not.
That was one of the things. I thought it was fine when I heard it in the trailer. And in the trailer, it did sound more, it had an accent. You know, I'm assuming it was the actor that plays him. That said the line. So there was definitely like a Japanese accent in the trailer, but in this one, it was a more Americanized version of the classic Get Over Here. So I'm not sure why they made that change. Maybe because it is so iconic, but that was something that I did notice because I thought it was kind of neat that it's like, okay, now we're getting a more culturally authentic Scorpion. And then they kind of changed it here and it took me out. And I know it's the line and he has to say it, but I was like, oh, so he does know English? Is that, because, you know, that was a weird thing that kind of took me out of it.
It was so nice of Hell to offer him English lessons that he was waiting around down there for thousands of years.
Well, they only taught him that one phrase. So just the one thing, because it is Hell.
Correct. They're nice, but they're not that great down there.
No. But like you said, yeah, the fight with him and Sub-Zero, that was Paul Kelly was watching. She came in and she started watching. She came in just for the very end. She's like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, Scorpion's back and he's defending Cole. How'd he come back? I'm like, who gives a shit? Like, it's a shitty movie. Like, I know they said like the blade, but whatever.
Yes, exactly. Something to do with a blade and blood, and it's not really stated. Nobody really. We're at the end. Nobody's gonna ask questions.
No. I really thought that Cole was going to become Scorpion. Like, I know that they established his Arcana later or earlier, but I thought it would have been neat if he gained his ancestors' powers, and that would have been his Arcana that would have unlocked at the very end of the film. That would have helped explain. You wouldn't need to explain how Hanzo came back. The spirit of Hanzo would have possessed Cole to carry out his revenge, and that's what would happen anytime he transforms into Scorpion. I thought that's really what was going to happen.
God damn, sir, you just wrote a better movie.
Like, I thought that's the direction we were heading in. They set it all up.
Dude, that's such a better movie. I wish that's the way that they went, because that would have made so much more sense of why he came back and what he was doing. Good call. God damn it. I'm pretty yeah. Anyway, we can't rewrite it now. The movie ends. Sub-Zero gets burnt. Scorpion goes back to hell. He gets his family out. I mean, it's almost a happily ever after. What bothered me the most in this happily ever after is that Sub-Zero did a pretty good job on this gym in terms of icing it up. And when we go to see Cole at the very end, no water damage, no icicles. It just looks exactly like it did at the beginning. And it's like, like the gym owner wasn't pissed about this, or no explanation was given. It just looks fine. And I don't know why that little point of continuity pissed me the fuck off, but there's no way that it would have gone back to looking exactly the same way it did after that so quickly.
Yeah, that was a weird. I didn't notice. Oh, you see it in the locker room too, where they're like frozen, and he's like, let me just open this right up. And yeah, you're right. Now that you mention it, it's like, yeah, that doesn't. I was more focused on the family being perfectly okay with no frostbite or anything.
Because we get a hint or a setup, or I don't know, but something Cage. There's another guy coming, and that guy, who is it?
Johnny Cage.
All right. So Johnny Cage has a poster hanging in this gym. And I'm thinking to myself, that poster was iced up and de-thawed out and it stayed so fucking pristine. Fuck you people. I just had water get into my basement where a little bit got onto a poster and the thing's wrecked. Like, fuck you. That's not how water works at all. I'm telling you, I don't know why it stuck so hard for me, but everything in there should have been kind of ripped down and damaged. And like he's kind of surfacing through an old locker, trying to find anything that may have still survived the ice attack. But no. He's just back in the gym like it's a regular 9 to fucking 5, like nothing fucking happened. Ooh, that part pissed me the fuck off so bad.
Even like the coach or whatever is like, oh, like he's just running around. He's got the towel. They're clearly using the place still already.
As if nothing happened at all.
No, not at all. See, Sub-Zero's ice is different than our ice. It's magical, so it doesn't. I don't know. Like it's stupid. It's really dumb.
Yeah, and so for the end, for them wanting to give me that MacGuffin of a character I didn't really understand, it just took me out of it, because the whole time I was going, that poster would be destroyed. But that was the movie, guys. I mean, I feel like we went through it pretty well. I'm sorry to say that the story didn't make sense to me almost at all ever during it. If it made sense to you, I'd love to get into some conversation in the comments of trying to explain to me why this made sense to somebody who doesn't know 1992 to like almost 30 years worth of Mortal Kombat history. This movie should be able to stand on its own of one cohesive piece, if you ask me.
And one of the things I wanted to ask you, because it sounds like we're in the minority as far as it seems like most people enjoyed the movie. And one of the things that has been coming up a lot, and I don't know if you saw it on Instagram, is people saying, well, why did you expect Citizen Kane out of Mortal Kombat 2021? And people are arguing like, well, why can't we expect a quality thing, even no matter what it's based on? Why do we have to excuse it because it's a video game movie? And how do you feel about people kind of using that argument?
It's bullshit. It is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. In the fact of, if that's not where you're going to sell me, or if that is your model, don't give me any story. Give me 90 minutes of people just fucking each other up in super duper awesome ways. And then I'll be like, okay, great. I don't think asking for a cohesive story beginning to end is something. I'm not asking for Citizen Kane. Because to be honest, if you watch that movie, it's kind of boring as shit anyway. But the story at least makes sense of this mogul who's like, I want to own the world. And then at the very end, he's like, fuck, I wish I just had that toy back. It makes sense. I just summed it up in 2 sentences. Sum up this movie in 1. I dare you. You know, even the brief little thing that they gave on IMDb doesn't actually mirror what is being told here. Because again, the movie's called Mortal Kombat and it has no Mortal Kombat in it. I don't think that that's reasonable. I don't think that that's something that will stand with any legs.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it's an excuse either. I don't. I think it doesn't deserve a pass. I don't think any movie deserves that pass. I think it needs to have the very basics of what makes an okay or a decent movie. And that's what you need minimum. And if it doesn't have that, then I don't know about you, but I'm going to trash the thing. And it's not going to, and the rest of the film, no matter what else is around it, is going to suffer because of it. So it's too bad. And I don't know if there's an extended cut out there that would help some of these things or some of these story points, but if we get to see that someday, great. The guy on Twitter one of the actors on Twitter was saying that there's a ton of fight scenes that were cut from the film, and maybe we'll get to see some of that. But in the meantime, you know what? If you enjoyed it, great. You know, if this was enough for you as a Mortal Kombat fan, awesome. But it's not something that I plan on watching again. I'll go back to the 1995 one instead.
And that's the other thing with people of, you know, us, people out there will see what we're doing and it's like, they'll attack us, and it's at no point am I saying because I didn't like it that you shouldn't, or that because I didn't like it, it shouldn't exist. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that. It exists, and I chose to commentate on it. If you have a different one, that's great. Kind of go back to the Bud section, start your own podcast, and you can talk about how much you fucking loved it.
That's right.
You know,
start a Mortal Kombat podcast.
Exactly. Do the whole thing. Do every single minute. Do it frame by frame. Every episode is a frame of Mortal Kombat. You could do that, and I'm not going to say you're stupid or wrong for doing that. I don't even think anybody is stupid or wrong for liking this movie if you liked it. Mm-hmm. But personally, no, I'm not going to say hashtag no more Mortal Kombat, but I'm definitely not going to go hashtag release the next one.
Yeah.
I'm okay with how it is. I watched it once, and I really don't believe that I'll watch it again.
No.
Will you do any more talking about it on your podcast, do you think?
No, I mean, we did. There's a podcast, there's a review coming up I did with Julian, and Julian came to the exact same conclusion about Scorpion and Cole, and he actually had a crush on Kano, so he feels the opposite about Kano than you did. But we did our share of hating, and he's someone that is way more into the games than I am, and maybe if they announce a sequel, I'll be like, great, you know, go enjoy, but I don't even know if I'll cover that because I don't care about this particular franchise. I don't like the way Warner Brothers is handling these movies. They used to be a studio of like respecting the auteur director and letting them do what they want, but these days it's about the bottom line, and that's fine. They're a business, but it's their art is suffering because of it, and it's a shame. And I think this is another product of that.
It's really strange. I was talking about it with a coworker, and just to kind of jump off really quick about Netflix having 52 new movies or 52 new movies this year. So one new movie a week. And some movies look great, but that one with Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Spencer, where they're superheroes, that movie was fucking trash, bro. And the only reason it got greenlit is because Melissa McCarthy's husband was the one who's like, I have an idea for a movie. And in my opinion, the studios went, well, that's better than a nobody's idea because at least I know this guy. And that kind of thinking is super dangerous, if you ask me. And it's the same kind of thing of what Warner Brothers is doing of, I don't care if it makes sense or not. The numbers or the people or the blank say that this is what it should be. It should be under 2 hours. It should be full of original characters. It should be kind of funny. And all that stuff in this movie just alone fucked it for me.
I think it was the producer that recently the article came out of. They said, we approached Mortal Kombat 2021 with, okay, what would Marvel do? And then that's the direction they went in. So they basically copied a formula. And they're like, we need to build a franchise. Who's the best at building franchises right now? We think it's Marvel. So let's see what they did. And let's try to do that here. And that's, I think, the root of the problem. Instead of trying to carve out your own path with what you think would be the best, they're trying to fit it into this formula or into this cookie cutter thing. And I think it's a studio thing of, well, we know the numbers add up to this amount in the box office if we can make a thing that's like that. And that's what they're trying to do, regardless of what the franchise or the characters are. And I don't know, like it's not filmmaking as it was a decade ago. They're all trying to sort of make the same thing.
Agreed. And really quick, just to also continue to kick Kano in the dick. Going back to Marvel, Kano is their Spider-Man. Like after you said that, it automatically made sense of like, oh, the reason I like it when Spider-Man does it is because he's a kid. It's because at 16, that obnoxious / cute line is a little bit wider to walk. But when I see this grown man who's supposed to be assassin / comic book artist, just wow, you have all this time to not only sit around enjoying media, but then to whip out references at the moment's notice. Like, you're a man of I can really see them now sitting down like, all right, well, we need a Spider-Man in this Avengers. Who's going to be our Spider-Man? Make it Kano. Kano will be our funny one. Like, wow, can I see that? I could see exactly what you're talking about of them opening a blueprint and taking, all right, now I take this and put it there and boom.
We have a movie.
Marvel has a guy who he gets around with lightning. We should do that too. Jesus, that's so funny that you put it out there. All in all, though, I'm not going to fail this movie. I don't know too much about Mortal Kombat. It was a D. It is there. I don't want to give it an F because I can't really say how bad it sucks compared to the mythology that is Mortal Kombat because I don't know enough about it. Standing on its own just as a movie, storyline was a D. The acting was in and around the same, maybe a C. Because again, I will never excuse Birthmark. What's that? Just fucking stupid. Where this really shines is the CGI. I can't say that anybody didn't look good or that the fights with all these crazy characters didn't look good. Just in that respect, there was just too much cutting. Just give me a 2-shot. Let these people who are fucking awesome at doing their martial arts do their martial arts and then show me that. But there was a lot of cutting. Overall, I give it a D. What do you think?
That's my exact grading. I wasn't, it's not Thor Ragnarok level of, that's a movie I'd fail. This wasn't quite on that level. And it's because of the CGI was great. And I don't think there was a scene where I'm like, no, that didn't quite look right. Everything looked solid when Melina opens her mouth and you see all of the skin rip and stretch and you see all of those little details. Like, that was amazing to me how they were able to pull that off. And I know I made fun of Goro as looking like Endgame Hulk, but that's not so much on Goro as it is on Hulk. Like Goro, I would have liked the puppetry, but you go back and you see the 1995 movie and it looks like a giant puppet. And this is the way they were able to do it in this one. And I thought they pulled it off okay. So, but it's because of the story. It's because of the weird character development sort of that we got with Cole. Like, it wasn't relatable at all to me. And then the relatable character who was Hanzo at the beginning of the movie doesn't show up until the very end in a non-interesting way of he's here because the story demands it and you've got this blade and Raiden said this thing about the bloodline. And there just could have been, I don't know if it could have used another rewrite or two, or it was just there were too many, what do they say, fingers in the pie or cooks in the kitchen with the studio meddling around too much. But there was, because of the CGI and a little bit of Scorpion, then it doesn't quite fail it for me. So D as well.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. That opening scene saved them from a full failure. I just wish that they took that opening scene and made a movie about that.
Yes. That's what you need, a spin-off film of just Scorpion and Sub-Zero. That should have been it.
Yeah, definitely, too. Hearing about what you're talking about, two factioning assassin clans, and they don't like each other, and they're going to have to come together. And yeah, that sounds like so much better than give them the uppercut, Dad.
Right. Go watch Mortal Kombat Legacy. Pull up the two Scorpion and Sub-Zero episodes. There's your movie right there. There's a better version of this story that's for free right now on YouTube.
With that, though, I think that will wrap up the superhero talk about this Mortal Kombat. Sir, I can't say again, every time you're here, I take up so much of your time. We just talk so smoothly and so easily, and thank you for coming and putting so much time into this. I can't believe how quickly it goes.
It always goes by real quick. Thank you, Nick, so much for inviting me back on. It's not something I ever expect, so it is always a privilege when you reach out to be on the show. So thank you so much.
Well, that's good to hear, because I'm going to do that right as soon as we get off here. I'm going to schedule your next one, because it's always so much fun. It's almost too much goddamn fun. So I want to keep this going. As long as you'll keep coming back, I'm going to keep asking you, sir.
Awesome. Let's go.
If you want to find more of Daniel, you want to hear more of him and his podcast, his co-host and all of that, go to The Reasons I'm Broke. I'm going to put a description down below. I take all your links out of yours and I put them down there. I would highly suggest giving them a like, a follow, all of those fun internet things, because it's always a good time.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you, sir. I have been Nick James.
I've been Daniel.
We are Buds, Bros, and Superheroes, and we are out of here.